Scuba Obsessed, the weekly podcast. We talk about all things scuba diving, from cool new gear to places to dive and scuba news. Scuba Obsessed episode 9,572. No. Scuba Obsessed episode 5. No, it's not. What the heck?
It's 529.
529. Scuba Obsessed episode 529 is recorded live March 31st, 2022. Welcome back to Scuba Obsessed. I'm Darren Gilson, coming to you from the southwest side of the great state of Michigan, where it only takes me about 3 hours to get started. Joining me this week, we have Mac, the dive mentor. How you doing today, Mac?
I'm doing very well. The rice crop is doing fantastic.
I assume it means you got some rice paddies going in the backyard?
Let me tell you, it's sort of funny though. I mean, at least there's no white stuff on the ground, even though we had white stuff fall down today several times, but alternating, I bet the rivers are raging.
I did notice when I drove across Hickory Creek there, not too far from you, that it was over the banks. So I'm going to guess that it is true that it is raging. St. Joe River's probably got a pretty good crest going on.
I've looked at the one in Niles, and it has not diminished in weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That just means good bottle turnover.
Yeah. Yeah, but I know it was a little bit of a shock Saturday morning, waking up and then seeing some snow on top of my car as I'm heading to the robotics event. That was a little... I hadn't paid attention to the news, so that surprised me a tad bit. And what, tomorrow's April 1st? April Fool's Day?
Yes.
So we should not be having... I mean, you always had that storm. I felt like we really missed out on the early kind of spring this year.
I think we had one day that was 60s, and that's it. That was Wednesday? No, it must have been Tuesday, when it was pretty mild.
Yeah. Yeah, Karen's saying it was sticking up here a bit today, so yeah, snow. I'm done. I'm ready. I'm ready for spring. That's my position. If it's not cold enough to make some hard water for ice diving, then I don't need it. And then spring's ready.
Yeah.
So it's been a few. Sure. Yes, yeah, this has been all the way around. Been a few weeks since we've gotten together. The robotics season has really taken a toll on me. I feel exhausted, tired. We finished our second robotics event, and we won our first event. This one we were on the 4th seeded alliance, and we made it through quarterfinals, but lost in semis to the number 1 seeded alliance. So, but I do believe we have enough points to secure a spot in state. I think we're probably about 50th in the state at the moment. Top 160 get to go. But there's 2 more weeks of competition yet happening, and it depends on how everybody else does in those and how the points add up. But we're probably going to be in we shouldn't be any lower than 100. So I'm betting we're going to be there. We're preparing as if we are. So we're still in meetings every night. Then if we do well enough at state, if we're in the top 60, then we'll be going on to Worlds, which this year for us will be in Houston. I can't tell you the last time I was in Houston. Actually, I probably can. It's probably been 10 years. No, 20 years. I think last time I was in Houston was coming back from Cancun, Mexico on a trip. That's the last time. I'd like to thank everybody who's in the chat room. We have Karen in the Scuba News. Cue up the screen here. First article that we have listed is Ken. What? Not even what it says. Glenn County sues for damages from the Golden Ray Sounds in Glenn County, which we covered a ton. The area had been home to Andy Jones his whole life. A beautiful day here in coastal Georgia, he said. Jones has been documenting a disaster since the vessel capsized on September 8th, 2019. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. The county is going after GLNV24 Shipping, which owned the Golden Ray, Hyundai Glovis, and several other companies involved with the operation. The lawsuit accuses the defendants of negligence, saying the vessel was loaded with too many vehicles up high, making it top-heavy and a risk of capsizing. Action News Jack saw that numerous oil spills and fires last year as the crews cut the vessel into sections to haul it off. The lawsuit claims defendants are responsible for what it has cost to the county to remove oil wreckage from the environment. Jones says the impact is far from over. Yesterday, I got a photo from a charter fisherman. He sent pictures of a shark he caught with appears to be oil on the fish. We don't see it, but it remains are still there. It's evidence of seeing a bumper washed up on the beach a week and a half ago. Jones worries about the long-term effects the shipwreck is having on his home. It's not over, Jones said. Action News Jack to reach out to Hyundai late Wednesday afternoon. I'll update the story online when we get a response, they said. Oh. Do you think this is pretty normal for
I would be sure they're going to try to recoup what it cost them to clean up the beaches.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. And then you've got to kind of indicate that, oh, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We got a bunch because you don't want them to try and negotiate you down. But I think they got a pretty good case. I mean, if you can demonstrate that you weren't just wasting money, that there are genuine costs to it, then I would bet that their insurance should be paying for that. Not that they won't try to get out of it. I'm always amazed when you see pictures of that vessel, how shiny and new it was. Makes you wonder if they just miscalculated something. It doesn't seem like a vessel that modern would have tipped over so easily.
Well, it said they were overloaded.
Yeah. And that could explain it. I mean, if you're overloaded or misloaded, there's people, that's, the memes, that's your only job. I mean, that's your job, is to get stuff in the right part of it. Maybe they're a little overconfident. Maybe they're still...
That, or you had some bosses that said, I want a little extra on there.
Yeah, we need a bonus. Yeah. How much is our bonus now?
I suppose they're lucky, though, it happened there. Because had they got out to sea, any kind of rough weather, it had dead people all over the place.
Oh, yeah. They were in a lucky spot for it to happen.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, if it happened there, it was going to happen in the open ocean.
Yeah. Well, in the open ocean, it could have been a lot easier cleanup. Just bloop, goes down and you don't see anything. Yeah, here they had to chop it up.
Well, out of sight, out of mind. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anything that goes in the water is forever away, isn't it? Isn't that how it goes?
Well, the solution to pollution is dilution.
Yeah. So here, a jury fails to reach a verdict in a scuba diving manslaughter trial. The CPS is considering whether or not to retry a case of a PADI dive manager, Nigel Craig, whose student died following a deep water course in, well, my goodness, Leicestershire's Stone Cove Dive Center. I'm guessing by the way they spelled center, it was in the Great Britain. Jury's been discharged in manslaughter in a trial case following the dive incident after it failed to agree on a verdict. Nigel Craig, the PADI dive master, denied gross negligent manslaughter relating to a death of a 40-year-old scuba diver, Richard Stansford, on July 14th, 2016. Mr. Stansford's gotten a breathing difficulty during a deep water course at Stony Cove Dive Center and died in a hospital later the same day. The Leicester Crown Court jury was reduced to 11 during the trial after one of the number became ill with COVID-19. Despite being given a majority direction by the judge, the jury foreman indicated after several hours of deliberation they were unable to reach a verdict on which at least 10 of them agreed. High Court Judge Mr. Justice Pepperall discharged the jury from further involvement in the case. The prosecutor said Crown prosecution surfaced decision about whether or not to proceed Would the retrial be made early next week? I don't remember this case.
I don't either.
I was kind of.
I'm just curious. Is that called a hung jury?
I don't know.
They can't make a decision?
I think it is. I think that's a term I've heard. I don't know if it's you just can't, because depending on the type of case, if you need a unanimous or not. So I know being a juror before, they don't like them. they get judge gets a little upset. We had one of those cases where it felt pretty obvious that it was going to be a guilty verdict. And we're like, this seems a little bit too easy. So then we deliberated on it. And then it went the other way where you had somebody held out. But, they threaten you having to come back the next day. It kind of like, oh, well, wait a minute. No, we can finish this up.
It never bothered me when I got for jury duty. I always enjoyed it.
No, I liked it.
All you got to do is wear that T-shirt.
Says fry them now.
God sort them out.
Yeah. Yeah, that will.
You don't have to stay there very long.
No. And when I was being considered for a federal case, there's a couple people there where they had a really bad attitude, and you kind of wish that the judge had thrown them in jail for contempt, because it was like, yeah, you're not even trying. Well, let's go and try this one. YouTube scuba diver says they may have found the body of a man missing for nearly 2 decades. A group of volunteer rescue divers known for its YouTube channel may have cracked a decades-old cold case. Divers from the group Adventures with Purpose said in a video Sunday they believe they discovered the remains of James Amabile, who had been missing since December 2003. We are confident we discovered not over Mr. Amabile's vehicle, but his human remains as well, said Doug Bishop in a video shared Sunday on the organization's channel. Bishop said divers discovered the car submerged in Derby Creek in Ridley Township, Pennsylvania, with human remains still in the vehicle. Ridley Township police were notified immediately, the group said in the caption for the video, and through a joint effort we were able to identify and recover human remains from inside that vehicle. The group is still waiting for confirmation from the medical examiner. However, Bishop says we believe, and the family believes, we have definitely closed this case for them. His family is extremely grateful for everything, Bishop said. The spokesperson for the group and the Ridley Township Police Department did not immediately respond for requests for comments. An attempt to reach Amabile's family was unsuccessful. Amabile's family had reached out to the diving group months ago, Bishop said. Amabile told his babysitter is running late to pick up his daughters, and he had been missing since then. The family theorized that Amabile, who was a diabetic, was disoriented because of low blood sugar, made the wrong turn before he drove in the river. The group retraced the dive between Amabile's home and the babysitter, pinpointing a marina in Derby Creek. Using underwater sonar technology, it wasn't available when he disappeared. They found the car about 24 feet underwater. Human remains were still buckled in the driver's seat. The marina was redeveloped a few years after Amabile disappeared, Bishop said in the video. The builders had unknowingly drilled a pylon through the submerged vehicle while building the dock. Wow, that is something.
Whoa.
Boy, this piling's going down a little tough. Pound. Did they say what part of it is? Rapid currents and poor visibility well, so that vehicle is not going. How'd they get it out?
And 20-something feet, and the piling went through the vehicle.
Wow.
The scan, I don't see how the side scan made a hell of a lot of difference.
No.
And how'd they get the car out?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, you got a piling through the car. I'm just picturing, like a 70s car with it like right through the middle of the hood.
Oh, yeah. Holy smoke.
Rapid currents and poor visibility further concealed the vehicle. Adventures of Purpose was able to recover most of the remains for identification. Maybe that's because I was kind of wondering why they recovered the remains and they didn't say anything about the vehicle, but that might be it.
Yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah. It has over 2 million subscribers on its channel, is funded by donations and merchandise sales. It facilitates volunteer diving expedition to find clues for missing persons cases, free of charge for the victim's family. The group has helped solve 20 missing person cases since 2019. At the moment, we want to take a moment to express our sympathies to the entire Immobile family as they navigate this tragic outcome to a nightmare that lasted 18 years.
Wow.
We encourage each and every one of you to take the time to hug your loved ones a little tighter and cherish the moments you have. So, wow. Yeah, you got to look. I mean, that's a tough thing with these cold case files.
Yeah.
But it makes you wonder why. I mean, well, there had to have been somebody had a theory that's where they went, because somebody driving without, just because somebody disappears, the first instinct isn't going, oh, they went in the river.
Yeah.
I actually have my brother-in-law, 20 years ago, was going to get diapers for his kids. The roads were a little icy, and he slid off the road into the river, and then he ended up drowning. So, I mean, it can happen. No.
Your audio went a little squirrely there.
Did it?
Yep.
Okay, so let's take a look at this
for a moment.
Yep. So let's take a look at this next one.
A blue blob.
Blue blob. Say that quick. In North Atlantic could keep. Oh goodness, I'm gonna have to open this up a little bit. Could keep melting glaciers cool. Study says. The region of the North Atlantic Ocean has been dubbed the blue blob by scientists due to abnormally cool temperatures compared with the rest of the ocean. This particular ocean patch could have significant impacts in the surrounding region. A study says that it could slow the melting rate of glaciers until 2015 before melting accelerates. Researchers from the American Geophysical Union say the blue blob has mitigated atmospheric warming in Iceland, is shielding many glaciers from unprecedented warmth. The blue blob presence is first noted in 2011 after Icelandic glaciers experienced steady shrinking from 1995 to 2010. In 2011, nearby glaciers such as those in Greenland and Svalbard continue to shrink, and the melting rate of some glaciers in Iceland significantly slowed. The blue blob was the strongest during the winter of 2014 to 2015, with ocean temperature was roughly 1.4 C cooler than usual. Recent slowdown in the melting of Iceland's glaciers likely caused by a patch. Oh, that's just a caption. Researchers say the cooler water around the blue blob are linked to lower air temperatures over the glacier in Iceland and coincide with the slowed melt rate. The tallest iceberg glaciers are over 2,000 meters tall and average 340 meters thick. Despite the monstrous size of the lake, the study says without significant steps to mitigate climate change, Iceland glaciers could vanish by 2,300. And they go on.
2,300?
Yeah, I might miss that one. I don't have any reservations. I haven't booked anything. No holidays or dive trips for, at least till 2980. So. Okay. I mean, that's kind of interesting. It'd be nice for them to, is that just something that's always been there and we just didn't look? And how many times do we get surprised?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This one. This one. Let me get it queued up. This is the asking for money, not for us. Whoops. There we go. But this was buying lettuce for manatees. They say that more than 55 tons of lettuce have been fed successfully to starving manatees this winter because they're natural food. More than 60 species of marine plants in Florida's coastal inland waters is being destroyed by water pollution. More than 1,100 manatees died from starvation last year. About 7,500 remain. Individual donations are funding the cost of the lettuce. You can add to this fund here. Is that a real number? That seems crazy, doesn't it? They lost 1,100 in the season.
They were talking about those with the cold water and whatever down in the south. It's been forcing them up into the rivers and their vegetation.
.com, and it's the Marine Mammal Fund. Did we just blank out again?
Oh, I still got you.
Okay. Yeah, blanked out for a second there. Yeah, so let's see. So how much does 55 tons of lettuce run? That's a heck of a salad.
Well, when you add in the tomatoes and the Italian, dressing.
Yeah. Croutons. So
we got to have a little crunch.
Yeah. So that's a lot. I mean, you figure they lost 15% of the population last year?
Yep.
Yeah, that's terrible. Look at I don't know. Can you see this in the format? Please select if this donation is court ordered. What? How do you get? Is this maybe you might be court ordered if it's with a boat? Is that what the idea is, or?
That might be. It's a little blurry on mine, so I can't read it.
Yeah. Yeah. So the donation amounts they have is 30, 50, 100, 500, and 1,000 or other. It can be reoccurring, one time, monthly, weekly, yearly. Add 3% to my donation to cover the credit card fees. Please select if this donation is court ordered. It must be so that they can verify it. So if the court said, hey, you need to do whatever, then he could, it's not like, sure you did. Must be so they can.
A new one on me.
I had not seen that one again.
I just to feed the animals.
Yeah, I just checked it. So right now the FBI and NSA are getting, that I've done something. So the Marine Mammal Fund. So Florida Fish and Wildlife. Yeah, that's pretty terrible down there. It's yeah. And then a shipwreck off the coast of Israel changes what we know about early Islamic period. Goods from all over, including Turkish nuts and Egyptian jars, found a ship that sank off. Oh my goodness, another name I can't pronounce.
And off the shoreline.
Off the shoreline, yeah. Magan Michael in northern Israel, 1,400 years ago. The dark age after the Muslim conquest of the Levant. Look at that photo. That is nice.
Yes.
How old? They saying that's 1,400 years old in saltwater?
I would have thought the worms and stuff would have really taken care of that by now.
And that looks pretty shallow, just looking at the patterns in the sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bow. 2 amateur divers spotted old timber, pottery fragments, ballast stones in the bottom Mediterranean Sea. They did alert authorities, but the sea quickly covered the remains with sand again. The shipwreck was lost. And that was in 2005. Happily, it was rediscovered a decade later by researchers from the University of Hof, who realized as a 1,400-year-old wreck of the merchantman from the early Islamic period labeled Magan Michael B. ship. This large, well-preserved vessel is one of the major discoveries of maritime archaeology in years. They changed the perception of the period thought as a dark age marked only by war and international isolation. We have very few shipwrecks in this period, and they are mostly smaller coastal vessels. This is according to Deborah Zwickel, professor of nautical archaeology in the University of Hof, who leads underwater excavation. Here we have a large, nicely built mechanism that could brave open seas, and it's one of the things that's making it unique. Look at that almost kind of like a deadeye. Like that's
it looks like a pulley sheave.
Yeah. Okay.
The top one.
Extraordinary preservation, masthead and rigging from the ship. MMB for short. Should not be confused with another ancient vessel that was raised from the sea bottom, the front of the same kibitz in the 1980s. This more famous ship without the B is smaller and much older, dating to the 5th century BCE, the Persian period. The MMB instead dates between 648 and 740 CE, the century that immediately followed the Muslim conquest of the Levant and established the Islamic Caliphate. Evidence collected from the wreck over 7 years of underwater excavations indicate the ship transported goods between Christian and Muslim-controlled territories and was manned by a multicultural crew. This challenges traditional view of the early Islamic period as a era of little contact between Mediterranean regions, with activity at sea consisting mainly of naval conflict between Muslims and the Byzantine Empire. This according to Sarah Harding, a PhD candidate who studies animal bones found in marine digs.
How deep did they say that one was? I mean, for the sand to cover it over usually means it's deeper or shallower than one would think.
Yeah, to me it's wow, but see, it's opened up. Like, look at those jars.
Yeah.
If that was covered with sand and now they're open again, and how many times has it done it? I mean, it makes you wonder if maybe the coastline wherever this is at has changed recently, where most of that time it was covered, and it's only recently that it's been opening up.
They didn't say how deep either, did they?
No. I'm just kind of scanning it now. A 25-meter long vessel carried at least 200 amphora, laden with produce including walnuts, olives, dates, figs, warm, an ancient Roman fermented fish sauce, civic, Vickle, and team reported in 2020 study. The cargo must have come from different areas. For example, the Guam contains bones of fish from the Sea of Galilee, while walnuts were probably native in colder climates such as the mountainous areas of Turkey or Syria. The ship also transported baskets of freshwater mollusks from the Nile, caged wild birds that migrated from the northern Sinai. Clay amphora used to be stored produce that was mixed with a bag. Interestingly, we found walnuts in Egyptian amphora, but you don't have walnuts in Egypt. So what traveled where? Do walnuts come from Turkey to Egypt and then are loaded in the amphora, or did the amphora travel from Egypt to Turkey? So those things are still trying to figure out. I think you're backhauling. You know, if you've got cargo that goes into a vessel and it gets consumed, like a bottle deposit, and then you're just not going to carry empty stuff back. Why not put something in it? So
yeah,
just an efficient way of packing. People weren't stupid. Oh, look at that, Mac. How deep is that?
Not very.
Yeah, it almost looks like you could stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would account for the sand shift.
Yeah.
But if somebody found it and then the sand covered it, once you found it, that means dry land, or maybe.
Right.
So it looks like shoreline. Coffer dam around it.
Oh yeah. Said another interesting aspect of the cargo is that the MMB was carrying shipments of glass fragments, broken off pieces, artifacts, jewelry, but also raw blobs of glass, another waste product of its industry. Aside from the 2 bottles, which were found in different parts of the ship, may have been used by the crew. Archaeologists were unable to reconstruct any artifacts from these hundreds of shards.
Oh.
Well, if that's, yeah, I don't know. It depends how thick it was and if that sand's moving that much. This suggests,
cool,
that the glass cargo was already in pieces when it boarded the ship. So it's probably destined for recycling at the workshop in the region. Yeah, that makes sense. Chemically, the fragments came from Egypt and Palestine, and we know that during the Roman and Byzantine periods, These are both important glass-making areas. Discovery of this regional trade in scrap glass shows the industry was still doing brisk business in the early Islamic period. We really don't know where the ship came from or where it was going when it sank. Conservatively, it may have been sailing a triangular route between Egypt, Cyprus, and somewhere in Levant. However, the ship may have sailed even farther, Harding suggests. Buried in the bowels of the vessels, divers found a remain of 6 rats. At least 2 of them belonged to the variants typical of the central Mediterranean islands, such as Corsica or Sardinia. Could indicate the ship was sailed to those lands too. Alternately, the ship could have been picked up a particular infestation in any port from any vessels that had gone to the central Mediterranean.
That's interesting.
Yeah, a glass bottle. You haven't found one of those, have you, Mac?
Not like that, no.
Look how delicate that glass looks on that edge. Yeah. In both cases we see during this time they have plague and have war. We have shipping and cargo connecting the central Mediterranean to southern Levant. And that starts to open up our idea about the level of communication that was happening. Yeah. On a side note, the rat corpses found deeply embedded in the structure, suggesting they may have already been dead when the vessel sank, thus preserving the veracity of the old adage about the rodents leaving a sinking ship.
Did you know that Phoenicians and Persians, when they used to travel, you know what they used to carry on board their ships?
Cats?
Cats.
Okay. Yep.
They counted them for get rid of the rodents, and they were also a trade item.
Well, then also, if you really get hungry.
Push come to shove, yeah.
Yeah. It's me and the cat. There's not a question.
Absolutely.
They said a clue to where it was built may come from a study of the layer of resin that was laid to protect the timber from rot. Similarly, insects trapped in amber millions of years ago. This sticky layer added and trapped the bugs while it was still wet. Experts say studying the insects to try to figure out where their natural environment was and by extension where the ship was built. The fact that foodstuff, rat skeletons, bugs embedded with the resin, as well as bones and sheep and goats were eaten by the crew may all have been found aboard gives you an idea how perfectly preserved the vessel is, possibly because it was covered by sand very quickly after it sank. Yeah, just the fact that it keeps getting opened.
Yeah.
Some nice photos in there. They did a good job of these. A lot of speculation on locations where it was going. It says, said no bodies have been found in the wreck, suggesting that the sailors may have safely reached shore. However, this does not mean we can say nothing about the crew, which the archaeologists estimate would have numbered around 8 people. Clues of their identity have been left to the dozen inscriptions painted or carved on both the amphoria of the cargo and the timbers of the ship itself. These writings include Greek and Arabic letters, as well as Christian crosses and Muslim invocations such as Bismillah, which is in the name of God. In some cases, crosses and Greek letters and amphoria mark the containing produce from various monasteries, which were very important to the economy at that period, and that could apply here. But the use of Christian symbols and Arabic invocations to Allah carved in the ship's wood were likely a way to bless the vessel's perilous journey across the sea and protect the crew. A mixture of alphabets and religion. Go ahead.
I was going to say, that photo sure indicates it's shallow.
Mm-hmm. Well, how about the divers walking in the surf? I mean, that's a shore dive. Yeah, they're coming out there, and then it looks like you can see, were they running a pump? Probably a suction dredge. So they're walking out.
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, they said the mixture of alphabet and religious symbols not only somewhat surprising the fact that several people aboard must have had some level of literacy, but also likelihood the ship was manned by a multicultural crew of Christians and Muslims, Harding says. One of the biggest takeaways of the shipwreck is that in the past, as in the present, normal people were more connected and united working together than history books would have you believed. Based on geopolitical narratives of war and battles, these are just regular people trying to make a living selling things they bought along the way. Said raising the ship would be an immense project that would probably take a lifetime, so at the moment, secrets of the shipwreck will remain accessible only to maritime archaeologists and the fish. Because they'll probably shoot you if you get close.
That's pretty cool there.
That is. Nice, cool. Then here's next one. Is this the same one or is this a little different? I think this one says a Roman boat that sank in the Mediterranean 1,700 years ago gives up its treasure. Okay, it says one squally day or stormy night 1,700 years ago, a boat carrying hundreds of amphorae of wine, oil, garum. It's almost the say? Is it the say? It's got the same cargo as the last vessel. That's a little bit different spot. When you say,
I like the visibility there.
Yeah, it says a boat which is 12 meters long, between 5 and 6 meters wide, emerged 3 years ago after a summer storm churned up the waters of the bay. Its appearance confirmed anecdotal reports of divers dating back to 1950s, prompted by Consul D take 3 years. The 3-year project. The aim to preserve everything there and its information about the contains could be done in a single emergency intervention. That's why the project comes in. It's about recovering and preserving about the wreck and the historical cargo. Is it just about Manslaughter? In the whole Western Mediterranean, there are few wrecks with such a singular cargo. Although the team is now looking how best to recover the hull of the wreck, which lies from November 2021 to mid-February, are still a little breathless over what they found. None of the team had expected the sands of the bay to have done such a spectacular job of sealing the wreck from oxygen and preserving organic materials. These have been so perfectly preserved that we found bits of textile, a leather shoe, and an espadrille. Most surprising thing is the boat is how well preserved it is, even the wood of the hull. It's wood you can knock like it fell from yesterday. The team who established the boat set sail from Spain's Cartagena region by analyzing minerals in the amphora clay. That it's hard to overstate the significance of the find. It's important in terms of naval architecture because there are very few ancient boats that are well preserved as this one. There are no complete Roman boats in Spain. What's more, he said the amphora represent improbable subaquatic archaeological hat trick. It's incredibly difficult, almost impossible to find a whole amphora that bear inscriptions and also still have remains of their content. The stated conservation here is just amazing. And yet, all this in 2 meters of water where millions of people have swum.
That's the one I would like to have found.
Yeah.
That's like the Green Bay.
Yeah. The islands weren't cut off. On the contrary, they're fundamental staging posts for routes from the Iberian Peninsula and the Italic Peninsula. When it's Italic, is it kind of like slanted one way, a little bit to the right?
Don't know.
In Roman times, the cities had political elites who were very well connected with the main Roman cities' Mediterranean coast. Teams found no trace of the boat's crew apart from their belongings, suggesting perhaps they made it to shore or swept away from the wreckage by the waves. What they left behind is, however, intriguing. Cow points to the oil lamp, which bears the obvious pagan symbol of the moon goddess Diana, and to the Christian signs that appear in the same seals in the amphora. The crew were probably pagan, but some of the merchandise they were carrying had to be Christian symbols. You have to be careful how you interpret that. The cargo could have been from an ecclesiastical authority, but you could have coexistence between pagan and the Christians. This may tell us a little bit about the daily lives of the crew. They may have said, look, I'm a sailor, I believe what I believe, but if you want me to carry Christian cargo, I'm okay with it if the money's good. I mean, would that have really been a consideration? I mean, if you're, yeah, okay. It's probably for somebody else to say.
I would think if you could get a job that paid money, that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, recovering phase complete, the cataloging underway, now turning to put the entire find on show. The idea is recover the hull and the touch with both national and international experts, make sure it's properly recovered. The boat needs to be exhibited. People need to see it. At the end of the day, we do archaeology for everyone, not just for the scientists. It's one of those finds where you laugh at the time because you can't believe it. It's the sort of thing that happens once in a lifetime, once in an academic lifetime. You'll never find this again. And that's what makes it so special. There you go.
You can't beat the depth or the clarity of the water.
Yep. You can't beat that. So that does it for Scuba News. For not being that prepared, we kind of went through that one.
Only thing about that is that's the kind of wreck you like to go dive on.
Yeah.
I mean, we do the river stuff, we find bones and stuff, but nothing of the age. That's what we miss. We're a young country.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking 300-400 years. That's great. Over the France, you live in a house at 400 years old.
Yeah. It's been remodeled twice.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
That's like the closer you go to New York, like you'll find a lot more stuff in Detroit than you will here ever.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was another entry point.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we did have some older stuff, but it'd be hard to identify. I mean, there's going to be some artifacts just from Indians and Native Americans, and then traders. I mean, we had early traders moving through here. Still plenty of stuff to find.
I think the earliest coin they found was 1700, and that was over in Paw.
Wow, 1700. The thing with coins is it shows you that it can't be any newer than that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like when I watch some of these shows like Oak Island, you can't help but wonder, did somebody have a good luck piece that was 100-year-old coin and then you drop it?
No, everything is.
Yeah, because you think of, how old a coin can I carry in my pocket? And just because I drop it in my yard doesn't mean that that coin's been there since it was minted. Well, I'm taking it with all the rain that nobody got any dives in the last week.
I didn't. It wouldn't surprise me if Kevin did, but I haven't heard about any.
I did read that he was. Didn't he get out in Lake Michigan? Was that?
I'm not sure if that was this year or a couple of years ago when the Coast Guard stopped them because they were the first boat out for the year.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was this year, though.
Because I remember hearing the story.
Yeah.
Because we did have a preserve meeting 2 weeks ago now.
Anything interesting?
In the preserve meeting, I mean, there's some stuff that will be announced, discussions on rebuoying wrecks for the spring. We did have a buoy that was damaged, and there's a little bit of back and forth about trying to get recognition. And part of the challenge is we need to know where the buoy was found, because I think we weren't calling the correct jurisdiction for where the buoy was. So you can't call one county and have them investigate another county, which is basically what it comes down to. So that I don't think we'll make that mistake again, but that did slow things down in the communication. Fundraising, getting money was talked about. Some media outreach we had some discussions on, so working on that.
I understand that we tried last year to get some media to go out as they did the buoys.
Yep.
Is that what they're going to try again?
Yeah, they're going to do that. I mean, the challenge is making it work for the media, both in the timing, the time of day, what they can talk about. Weather's got to cooperate. And then you can't have any other newsworthy stories hijack it. So, and I think that's what happened last time, is that there's a bigger story came along and they didn't get a chance to make it.
Yeah.
Oh, but that was pretty much the reserve meeting. So hopefully we get some time in. I mean, we're due. We've been on the lake earlier than this.
Yep.
I've been on the Havana before this time before. So, yep, not going to be a record breaker for this season. How's the beachfront done? Have you been up in the plane recently and taken a look?
No, I have not for a while. The last time I was up there was in January, and you still have a little bit of ice covering,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know what the erosion has done since then.
Yeah, so that'll be kind of interesting to see what it's about. Also, what the water levels are. I haven't seen any articles in the last couple months, but I think we were down a little bit, but I don't think we're down as much as everybody would like.
Yeah, every time I cross the bridge to go over to Benton Harbor, I take a look at the river there and the docks, and they were not underwater, which they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah, so that's better. Yep. And then I understand Wolves had their open house. Did you get a chance to go to that?
Yep. Actually, you thought it was the old geezer gathering. We told them next time we want a table and a coffee pot because we're probably blocking traffic, BSing. There was a number of us got together. There was probably 5 or 6 at one time. Clearly blocking traffic. Well, I wouldn't say clearly, but at least they were busy.
So your walkers were getting in the way then, is what you're saying?
Yeah. And we did see a couple of newbies, a couple of guys who were older, hadn't dove for a while, bringing back their grandkids in to get recertified. So that's always positive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there was some discussion on pool. Did that ever happen?
Well, the pool one, the ice dive training went at Bridgman, and then they went north and got the dive in.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
So that was a success for those who attended it.
Yeah. Very good. Well, do you have a dive safety story for the week?
Well, 2 items. If you and our listeners go to the Mud Club's website, there's a good article about establishing a scuba diving safety day. And then next month, in a week or so, you'll see another article on, since you don't have an expiration date on your key card, the comment is going to come up about how do you get reacclimated to diving, especially if you've been away for a while. So there'll be a really nice article on that, I think, that's going to be in the club site that anybody can go to and take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that, Dan has put out a couple of new articles, one of which I have here. So we'll talk about this one. It's called Oxygen Starvation at Depth, Equipment or Human Failure. Now, the background is it was a quarry dive, 70-degree weather, where the diver experienced a sudden out of air at 85 feet of seawater. Temperature at that depth was 54 degrees. The gentleman was unable to locate his buddy. Diver chose to ascend rapidly to the surface. And I do mean rapidly. The reported accident. After an uneventful descent on the first dive in a flooded quarry, diver experienced a sudden out of air at 85 feet. The environmental air temperature was 70 at the surface, 54 degrees at the depth he was at when he had the issue. Poor visibility prevented immediate contact with his buddy. Diver proceeded with a rapid ascent. No air was available through the regulator throughout the ascent, which was recorded by the dive computer at 230 feet per minute ascent rate. So he was flying.
Wow.
He was clearly not able to carry out a safety stop and kept his weight belt on. When he was at the surface, air was available to the regulator, and he was able to reinflate his BCD. He waited there. His buddy showed up 5 minutes later. The only post-accident incident symptom was a headache, which resolved within 5 minutes of surface oxygen. But because of his ascent rate, as a precautionary tale, the diver was evacuated to a hospital for a CT scan. He was on 24-hour observation and oxygen administered throughout the period. He had no further symptoms. He was discharged without needing recompression treatment. Now, the review was trying to figure out what the heck happened. It said a review of typical causes of out of air at depth include: was the cylinder valve being inadequately opened? Did he have a perforated diaphragm? Damaged piston O-ring? Was it a failure of the regulator springs? Or did they have an inadequate interstage pressure setting for the first stage regulator? Or did they simply have degraded hose material lodging in the regulator? So you never really think of all the other items that could have been. Yes, they did took the regulator apart to find out. The ambient water of 54 should not have caused freezing and sticking of the piston first stage regulator. Bottom line is they couldn't figure out what it was. In the case of being partially open cylinder valve, diver reported the cylinder was totally and fully open. The interstage pressure is normally achieved through a flexible diaphragm or a metallic piston, and though reliably poorly maintained regulators can fail due to fatigue or O-ring damage. The unlikely aspect is because it started working back on the surface. So they really were not able to determine, even though they did try to do an evaluation. Recommendations is the numerous reports of lately of inner linings of the hoses being degraded, allowing debris to move in direction of the gas flow, blocking the regulator. And if you remember a couple of years ago, we were seeing a good number of hoses that had to be replaced for that deterioration. And it said once at the surface, interstage pressure is at the lowest. It's possible this would allow the debris to shift and the gas to flow again. And the bottom line is case notes don't provide sufficient information as opposed to accident investigation. And they basically say it's pretty lucky coming up as fast as he did. He turned out to be pretty lucky.
Oh, but they was screaming. That's nuts.
Oh, yeah. And if he'd have dropped his weight belt, I'd imagine he'd have gone faster.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
He must have porpoised.
Yeah, I would think so.
I find that interesting since the BCD was not inflated.
Well, right.
So, boy, he must have been stroking.
Hmm. Well, thank you. So what was the suggestion for that? Was that drop weight or?
Well, we're looking at all the other aspects. They're basically saying regulator maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, had air, had the valve open. The only thing left was the hose to it. And it never says, though, whether or not he tried the BC at depth. It just said it worked at the surface.
Mm.
So if it didn't work at the bottom, that would have meant first stage regulator.
Yeah, pressures weren't quite right, or
Yeah.
Huh. Or I mean, did they say how much experience he had?
No, it didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it could be user error. Early on in diving, could sometimes get confused with, which button do you press or lever do you twist to do whatever. And you're convinced you're doing the correct one and you weren't.
Well, hopefully you're getting your crap together when you're diving 75 feet.
Yeah, that's not a shallow dive.
Nope.
So are we through the dive show season? Do we have any other dive shows coming up?
I'm not sure when that mast is.
Mm-hmm.
Karen went to it a couple of years ago, so I'm not sure when that is. And I'm not sure if they had the one that was in Ohio or not.
Okay. Yeah, with the pandemic, who knows how anything's going for shows. Well, I think that's kind of run through what we had on the list this week. Hopefully get some weather breaks and get some dives in. I'm probably not going to have any opportunity here before, towards the end of April. Then I got to make up some time, try and figure out how to get some dives in. I'm people at work keep asking me, when was the last time? It's been a while. Yeah, well, we should have the inflatables going in pretty soon.
I imagine people are going to start looking at getting wet anytime now.
Yeah.
I mean, it is starting to get lighter out.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost wetsuit weather.
Yep.
Looking forward to getting wet myself.
Yeah, I am too. Been too long. Well, do you have anything you want to plug before we get on out of here?
I got nothing on the calendar over there. Anybody out there, just take a look at the Michigan Underwater Divers Club. The article we posted out there for safety, that'll be the best one. And then, like I said, next month when the other issue is getting not recertified, but don't get complacent when you start getting into water, especially after a layoff.
Well, are you ready for that time of the show?
Absolutely.
So here, we talked a little bit about daylight savings time, and it getting a little bit longer. So let's see if I've got any of these. Daylight savings time gave me a back injury. I need to buy a smaller sundial. I'm so poor, my only funds are daylight savings, but at least trickling down for a rainy day. I don't know if I get that one. Yeah, most modern clocks these days auto update when daylight savings begins and ends. So this morning I'm walking around my house thinking, wow, times have changed.
I think we need help from our audience.
Yeah. There's some I can't do. I'm not so sure about this daylight savings thing. I'll give it 6 months.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You did see where they passed some legislature to do away with that?
Uh-huh.
You saw that, right?
I did. The thing is, are we going to keep the correct time? Our time zones are really too big. An hour time zone, well, it makes it easier for the clocks. You've always got, somebody on one edge or the other edge of the time zone where it doesn't quite work out for them. Let's see. So at this these next two are they may ruin our rating,
or they won't be included. They won't make the cut.
They might not make the cut. So if I say this and they don't make the cut, so let's see. So here's Oh, here it is. Oh, thanks to daylight savings time, my girlfriend thought I lasted 1 hour and 3 minutes.
Ooh.
Yeah. Okay. And then here's the one that gets us deplatformed. On one morning, that daylight savings times ended, I stopped by to visit an aged friend. He was busy covering his penis with black shoe polish. I said to him, "You better get your hearing checked. You're supposed to turn your clock back."
Okay.
So, on that note, go out there and get wet.
And think safe, stay safe.
Yeah. In the chat room, Karen had some